Hi, this is Andrea Lingle, and you're doing writing practice. This is part of my summer series where we talk about the fundamentals of writing practice. How does it work? How to do it better? How to get the most out of it? I'm glad you're here. If you're new, you'll need to run get a piece of paper. Anything will work. I use these little blank journals because I feel bad if I don't use the lines properly. And we're going to be writing fast and not caring about lines. And then you'll need a pen. Quite literally, you can use this on a computer, but I like the way that the pen across the paper really helps. So I recommend pen and paper, but anything will work. So let's get started. This week, we're going to be working on visualizing. This is a huge part of how I write. I use a process that I describe as catching what rises. And I say that all the time, and I'm not sure that I have thoroughly explained what I mean by that. And the best way that I can describe it is that this happens, I use this most frequently when I'm doing my scriptural imagination writing. And what that means is any passage that, or any story that you're very familiar with, you have to be familiar with it or it doesn't work. Because you have to be able to get yourself into the story. So my favorite example is in the upper room with the disciples after Jesus is gone and he comes back. I try and visualize that room right before the things happen, and I try and see what's there. And so I just close my eyes for just a few minutes and I let the room rise up around me. So that's what I mean by catching what rises. So there might be a window, and so you just let your imagination zoom in on the window. What's there? Is it dry? Is it dusty? Is there a bug crawling on the windowsill? And you really try and visualize the environment of the story that you're trying to inhabit. And when you have visualized it thoroughly enough, then the details, you can see the details and you can catch them as they rise up. So if you're writing a prompt, last week we wrote my regular life. And so this week, if you didn't do that, that's fine. I'll make sure that it's easy to catch up on, but we're going to take 3 of those things that you listed last week out of your regular life, and you're going to describe them. And these are constrained writing assignments. So in a constrained writing environment, there are rules that don't necessarily apply to regular writing. But in this writing, you're going to write everything that you can, all the details you can, without using any words that are like dead giveaways. So if your word was Legos, because that was on my list from last week, you wouldn't say Lego or plastic brick or even interlocking brick system. You would say things like glossy sides, right angles, crisp edges, round studs, things like that. Like you would hope that the point is not that people might be able to figure out what you're talking about. The point is that you're allowing yourself to zero in on that thing in your imagination to the degree that you can write about it in a concrete way. So the other important thing about this writing assignment is that it's not something that's actually in front of you. It has to be something that's not in front of you. So when we catch what rises, we are doing this as a mental exercise. This is rising up in your brain. If you were going to draw an analogy to art, this would not be looking at something and reproducing it. This would be drawing from either memory or imagination. What you're trying to do is get as specific and correct as possible without actually looking at the thing. So, what does it mean to catch what rises? To catch what rises means to pause, visualize mentally, what it is that you're talking about and zoom in and zoom in and zoom in on the tiny details until you feel grounded in the environment. Then when you start writing about the things that are in the environment, and let the people story, the story that you're probably trying to tell, there aren't very many very long works of literature that are just landscapes. Although I'm sure there's one, and if there is, you let me know and I'll read it, I'm sure. But zooming in on the environment can give your characters grounding. And that way, when your story is starting to float, if you're writing a book or if you're writing a story, if it's starting to float and feel like it's not grounded in the environment, you can real quickly write one of these scenes where you're just zoomed in. That's kind of what it's for the writing craft. For writing practice, this process of stopping and visualizing gives us a sense of noticing what's around us and being very clear and very strong with our ability to visualize things. Okay, so here's your writing assignment for this week. If you wrote last week, you can find that list if you still have it. If you didn't write last week or you've lost your list, it doesn't matter. And pick 3 things off the list that you want to write about or that you desperately don't want to write about. If you're gutsy, pick the ones that seem either the most boring or the most complicated or whatever. Or just pick ones that are happy for you. If you didn't write last week, you can either pause this and go back and use that video, or you can just real quickly think of 3 things that represent your regular life. Just you in a regular life, 3 objects. For instance, on my list was 6 laundry hampers, 3 dogs, Legos, all these things. It doesn't have to necessarily be an object, but it's certainly going to be easier to describe if it is an object. If it's a concept, good on you. Okay, so writing practice rules. Write the 3 things at the top of the page. Then set a timer for 5 minutes and write as furiously as you can about the first one. As soon as you kind of run out of things that you want to say about the next one, pop out. Instead of writing circles like we normally do, go on to the next one. As soon as you run out, go on to the next one. And then as soon as you run out of things, go on to the next one. You should actually run out of time before you run out of prompts. Before you do any of it, with the first one, count to 10 or 30 seconds or whatever you want to do, visualizing. Let it get really firm in your mind. What color Lego are we talking about? Is it a 2x4? Is it a 1x6? What are you talking about? Let it get really clear in your mind before you start writing. Don't sit there for 5 minutes and visualize, because you want to be able to spend some time writing. So get your mind real clear about what you want to do. Start writing as quickly as you can, and as soon as you run out of time, go on to the next thing. I want you to see the difference between visualizing and just going straight on, if you can. So the depth that you can get when you stop and visualize versus when you just go straight on to the next one. If you have any feedback or any questions, be sure to contact me. Otherwise, have fun writing. I sure enjoy writing with you, and I will see you next week. Thanks. Bye.